In this video, I'm going to be talking all about how the world views food, fitness, and our bodies, and conversely, how God views food, fitness, and our bodies. My name is Rayanne Porte, and I am a faith-based health coach. Let's take a minute to recap where we've been. I'm going to high-level all of my prior videos up until now. So oftentimes when we struggle with food and fitness, whether that's overeating, undereating, stress eating, emotional eating, chronic dieting, over-exercising, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, binging, thinking about our bodies and food all the time, thinking we can achieve this perfect diet or hyper control our food, many times when these things come up in our lives, the world wants us to think that because they're external behaviors, that the solution is also external. And basically, what do they prescribe? Just a different diet and a different workout plan. Doesn't work. And then maybe we might realize that, oh, we should probably go to therapy. But if it's not faith-based, it's not gonna work. These things are just all a band-aid on a deeper problem. And what is that problem? We actually have a spiritual battle going on against the devil. And many times nobody talks about this, but it's so true. When we fight the devil down here, we replace the lies that he's telling us with brand new beliefs. All of these things are healed. And then we no longer struggle with food and fitness any longer. Well, how exactly do we fight the devil? The very first step is that we think about what we think about and we ask God, reveal to me where the devil is deceiving me when it comes to food, fitness, and our bodies. After that, we talked about how we can claim those thoughts captive that the devil is trying to tell us and how we claim victory over them, which will lead us to start to be able to not act on those thoughts. Well, in this video, we're going to talk all about how we completely replace those lies that the devil has told us for so long with brand new beliefs. So, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about what the worldview of food, fitness, and our bodies is, and then what God's view is. And so if you look down here, we're still talking about our thoughts, but then you'll start to see how this whole process comes together, where we form new beliefs, and then our emotions will start to follow suit, where instead of frustration and overwhelm around food, fitness, and our bodies, we start to have more positive or neutral emotions, and then our actions will just be a byproduct of what's going on down here. And we will talk about our physiology. I haven't yet in any of my prior videos, but this is an integral part to the whole equation that we will talk about. So let's dive into the world's view of food, fitness, and our body. The world touts that if we look a certain way, eat a certain way, or work out a certain way, that this will lead us to a beautiful life of health, happiness, ease, and control. So what we end up doing is we start to shape our life around food, fitness, and our body. We might try to start to restrict our food, or maybe not necessarily restrict, but control our food, or maybe we start to pride ourselves on our workouts, or maybe we start to praise our body if it starts to look how the world thinks it needs to look. And basically what ends up happening is one of two things. Either one, we start to realize that living this way is not sustainable, or two, we start to realize that we've achieved all of these goals. We've achieved this certain weight that we thought we needed to get to, or achieving a certain way of eating that we thought we were supposed to do, or we got all the workouts in, and we realized at the end of the day, we weren't happy. It didn't lead us to a life of ease. We still aren't fully control of our life, and that doesn't guarantee health. Well, so then what ends up happening is we shift to the other extreme, and we might end up, when we don't see that panning out for us, we might end up overindulging, or we start to shame ourselves for not getting the workouts in, or we start to hate our body. And so we end up possibly in this cycle where at the end of the day, we're not realizing what's really going on, and that what the world is telling us is an empty promise. So how does the devil use these things to keep us from an intimate relationship with Christ? There's 3 ways: distract, deceive, discourage. So the devil uses all of these things that the world is telling us to distract us. And basically, he just wants us to be overly focused on food, fitness, and our bodies, where we just focus on them flat out too much, so that we aren't hearing God, we're not listening to God, we're not trying to tap into God's calling for our life because we're just so focused on food, fitness, and our body. So that's distraction. Secondly, deception. All of this is just a complete lie, and he wants us to have this incorrect focus on food, fitness, and our body instead of the truth, which I'll talk about in a minute. So that's deception. Thirdly, discouragement. So in all of this, basically the devil just wants to discourage us. He wants to have us to have a negative focus on food, fitness, and our body, to a point where we might end up thinking that these things are bad or wrong. For me, in my struggle, I got to a point where I was just so frustrated. I cried out, God, why would you create us as beings that need to eat food when it's causing me so much pain? And I was just so discouraged. Well, it was because I didn't understand God's perspective of food and what was really going on. So at the end of the day, before we talk about God's perspective of food, fitness, and our body, let's talk about what it isn't. So if the devil wants us to overly focus on food, fitness, and our bodies, one might think that the answer is to just not focus on them. Well, that isn't it either. God says in his word, do not worry about what you will eat or what you will drink. He doesn't say don't think about it, because he's made us as beings that we have to eat every day, and we have these bodies that we live in. So it's not that we should avoid food, fitness in our body or shun them or anything like that, but it's just how we view them that he wants to change in us. So what's God's perspective on food, fitness, and our bodies? Well, let's first talk about the one important truth that we get to stand on, and that is that God is the one and only thing that will fulfill us. So when the world tells us that looking a certain way or eating a certain way is going to bring us health, happiness, ease, and control, at the end of the day, what they're really seeking is the peace of Christ. But they think that by going after and chasing all of these things, that is going to fulfill them. And at the end of the day, it doesn't. I don't think anybody would really argue when we talk about this world today and that troubles are going to come. But what is the one thing that can carry us through? And that's God. So instead of having the view that doing all these things with food and fitness and our bodies are going to give us peace, let's instead look to Christ to give us the peace that surpasses all understanding. So what is the right and proper view of food and fitness and our body? They are gifts. They are gifts from an amazing giver. They're gifts from God. And so we can view them as things that point us to Christ. There are things that he has given us that can help us get to know him better. We can worship him through them. We can acknowledge God. We can learn more about his character through these things. And a good way that I like to think about it is that these things are a means to the end. So when I was in my struggles with food and fitness, I had a lot of goals around food and fitness. And really, whenever it came to food and fitness, I didn't think about them in any other way besides goals. Goals and how to eat, how to work out, how to look. And that was in a certain way that was like the end. It was like the goal was the end. If I could eat this certain way or get to this certain weight, that was the end. Well, instead of looking at food fitness in our body as goals, we can start to look at them as gifts. And when we look at them as gifts, it starts to change our whole entire perspective. So let me just give a brief example. This is a hypothetical situation. Let's just say last year for my birthday, my husband got me this beautiful gift, and it was a gift that he made. He's super handy and into woodworking, so he created this wooden frame for me, and he put inside a picture of like a special moment him and I shared of like a memory that meant a lot to us. And then for Christmas that year, maybe he built me out of wood this cool organization system for our closet so I could like have a spot to put all my things. Well, of course, I would be so excited about the gift, and I would be so like happy to use it, and I would be so excited to look at it every day, but I wouldn't worship the gift, right? I wouldn't want to spend time with the gift. I would realize that the gift was just something that could bring me closer to my husband, right? And so that's how God wants us to view food, fitness, and our bodies, as they are things that he's given us that show us how much he loves us and cares about us, and that he's given them to us for our enjoyment and for us to bring closer in intimacy with him. So how would we respond to these gifts? Gratitude and trust. So first, let's talk about gratitude. So when we start to shift our perspective of food, fitness, in our body to an attitude of gratefulness, we completely turn things on its end. We can start to see that because we were created by God, we were fearfully and wonderfully made by him. We are a child of his. We have immense and inherent worth because we were created by him. We are his handiwork. And this, it puts the view of our body in such a different light. Like nothing that the world is talking about. It's completely different than everything that the world says about our bodies. Our bodies, God has given to us to help us live out the calling that He has for our life. He's given us food to help us do that too. And our bodies house the Holy Spirit. Like, how amazing is that? And so when we take on this attitude of gratitude, we end up not falling into the pit of overvaluing or undervaluing food, fitness, and our body. So the second thing is trust. When we see these things as gifts, it helps us learn to trust God more with them. So this one might need a little bit of explanation. So in my struggle, at a certain point, I kind of was a little bit jaded, and you might be too. So you might be coming at me saying, yeah, Rayanne, it's great. It's great on paper to say that these are gifts and to be grateful for them, but you don't understand. My body is pulled to food. You don't understand. I can't get out of the diet binge cycle. You don't get it. And I totally get it. And I want to give you encouragement that when we start to talk about our physiology, things will start to click, and you'll start to understand what is going on in the brain and the body that will help us get out of these cycles and will help us understand that our body, God has given to us, and so we can trust him with it. Our body is not different or broken than anybody else's body. So God has given us hunger, the hunger hormone, and he's given us the fullness hormone to help cue us to know how and when to eat. He's given our bodies natural tendencies to like certain foods at certain times in our life or dislike certain foods at times in our life. And same thing with working out. He's given our bodies certain ways that we like to move and certain ways that we don't like to move. And we'll start to be able to tap into those things once we get our physiology on our side. So I said all that to say that we can respond to God in gratefulness and in trusting him with our bodies. Now, we're trusting him. We're not trusting our bodies because our bodies will fail us. But our bodies are a gift that we have here on this earth while we're here that we can trust God with. I want to leave you with one last piece of encouragement, and that's how to handle the devil's lies in the day-to-day from here on out. Of course, continue to do what we talked about last week, which was taking your thoughts captive and claiming victory over them. But now that we know the truth, you can do a couple additional things. So when the devil comes at you with a thought that you know is of the former way, one thing you can do is start to say out loud or to yourself qualities and characteristics of God. All the things that you know him to be. God, you are my Father, my Redeemer, my Savior. You are just, you are merciful, you are majestic, you are all-knowing, you are powerful. The list goes on. And what that does is it reorients our perspective to be focused on him instead of on the swirl around us. Another thing you can do is focus on who he has made you to be. You can start to memorize the scriptures, some of which I talked about earlier in this video, who he has made us to be, fearfully and wonderfully made. He knit us in our mother's womb. We are called and chosen by him, etc. The third thing is we can start to put more focus on truly meaningful things that happen to us in our day-to-day. And what I mean by that is back in my struggles with food and fitness, this would be something that would happen. Let's just say I was at Kohl's buying clothes for my kids, and I was like in the checkout lane. And while this lovely woman was checking me out or cashing me out, I would be thinking in my head, oh, I need to go home and I need to make lunch, and I should have a salad, but I don't have any of the ingredients on hand, so should I run to the store, or should I just eat what I have on hand, which is peanut butter and jelly, but I really shouldn't eat the jelly because of all the sugar. And then before you know it, I'm out of there and I'm still ruminating about what I should eat. Well, instead, after God taught me all of this, I started to focus on those moments in my day as being meaningful. Like that is the calling. The calling is not to focus on what I'm gonna eat or not eat or all the swirl, right? So instead, when I go to Kohl's and I'm in the line, I realize I have 5 minutes with this person where I could make their day, or I could possibly have a conversation about God with this person instead. And I had totally been missing all of those opportunities. So what I thought was meaningful before, which was food and my body, is really a bit transactional. And what I thought was transactional before, which was this person who I've never met before in my life, that is the meaningful thing in our day, right? So once we start to fill ourselves with the word, more prayer, more worship, God will start to reveal to us just more of himself, which is amazing. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, you can reach out to me and chat if you want. Otherwise, I will catch you here next week.